we're looking at that per session. And so with this trade here, this was a pretty standard orb trade. Basically, what we could see, but there are some macro elements that I want to touch on as well. So what happened today? Because it does matter what happened today. We also had a lot of earnings after the close today, so that was something that kind of was in my head before taking this trade because this was pretty much right on Asia Open. So what did we see today? We had a little bit of a very, very small kind of, I won't even call this a sell-off. This is just kind of sellers stepping into the market earlier today. And then we had obviously this pretty insane rally throughout the rest of the day in pretty much everything. I mean, crypto, stocks, obviously the NASDAQ, S&P 500, those are just stocks at the end of the day, just an aggregate of a bunch of stocks. All the metals rallied today, like pretty much everything was rallying today. So obviously positive sentiment in the market today. But we did have this kind of sell-off later, not quite to, the opening range, but pretty far off. I mean, we sold off, we sold off about 260 points. So that is a pretty big sell-off for midday/late day. But something that was important is that we did reverse. And why this is important and why this level is important is because I kind of want to show why volume-based trading and reading the session volume profile is so important. Look at how perfect this line is. And these lines are not drawn just randomly. These are lines that are drawn by the session volume profile. And this is called the value area low. So 70% of the volume traded in this area here. And you can see this is the point of control. This is the value area high. This is the value area low. The value area low, as you can see, there was some consolidation there. And typically this will act as a support or resistance level. It is very important to recognize that when you are, identifying yourself as a volume trader. This is an indicator. It is provided by TradingView. This is nothing that I created. This is nothing that is super, advanced by any means. This is a very typical indicator that is provided by, TradingView or typically any other charting platform. My session volume profile is anchored to the day, so the whole day. Do I look at pre-day? No, it is called the SVP or session volume profile. So as you can see, these are my parameters here. You have the value area high, value area low, the point of control. And all this is looking for, so I look at the market only session. That is the volume that it is looking for. And then the value area volume is, what is the volume that I care about the most? That's going to be that 70% area. That's like where between the value area high and the value area low, that is just the 70 percentile of trades. And why that's important is just because it tends to, it'll prioritize where the most amount of volume is traded. And that's what you want it to do. That is the most important thing. What was P&L today? I made $420 on this trade earlier today. And then I just made $420 across 5 accounts. So $2,100. This trade, I made $1,000 across 5 accounts. So that's going to be $5,000. Yeah. But do I use this mostly for all trades? It is not something that I necessarily use for, it's something that I look at for sure. I'm definitely constantly looking at it. You can manually anchor it to a specific range, but I think it is, I find it best useful when it's anchored to the session. So, if you're interested in joining mentorship, thank you. I have probably 2 more spots open through the end of the month. But definitely just DM me and we can hop on a call. I have a couple people that I'm looking to confirm within the end of the week. And then I probably will be closing because I do have a lot of students. But basically what I was saying is that I do have quite a few students right now that I'm super excited to get started with, that have just started with me. And so I'm probably going to take only 2 more people by the end of the month. But if you want to be one of those 2 people, definitely just shoot me a DM and we can talk about it. But with this trade, All right. Sorry, guys. Back to the trades. I'm not going to look at the chat for a sec because I do want to go through these trades. Sell off, midday, bounce off this value area low. Why is this important for this trade here? It's important because we have buyers in the market. We did not just completely sell off the whole entire day. What would have not inclined me to take this long here was if we had this rally and then late in the day we just blew through all these levels. If we had a stronger sell off and not this rally here, I would not be even considering longs, but we had a lot of nice targets here. I'm going to turn this off for a second. We had a lot of nice targets, and you can see that I basically caught almost the top of this opening range on Asia session. Why was this so important is because, first of all, I wasn't being greedy. Second of all, I was just going for this high because I figured that sellers were probably going to come back there, considering what happened here. So we know that there's sellers in the market, but we also know that there's buyers in the market. But Asia opening range breakout, we have a influx of buyers. Did I think that we were going to get at least up to this level? Hopefully. And I also trailed my stop pretty tightly because what also could have happened and what kind of happened is we also could have had a lower low here. I wasn't sure exactly where price was going to go, but I knew that we were at least going to go, not for sure, obviously, you don't know, any trade is 100% certain, but I knew that I had a good probability that things were going to continue pushing upwards after we had that influx of buyers right on the Asia session open, and we had this influx of buyers at the value area low earlier in the day. So there's a few things that are going on here. There was a change of character as well, where we opened up above this high opened up above this high, which was important to notice that we weren't going to have this type of lower low, lower high type of structure. We did change character right here where we had, where we had this movement here, basically tapped in, and then change of character right here, which is very, very important. That signals this upper movement as well, kind of just confirming this shift into buyers being in control. So entry on the breakout with momentum, clean 2R, and I did trail very tightly. This is one of those trades as well, guys, where if it does not go, when you're trading right on the open and when you're trading an opening range breakout, if things are not going your way pretty quickly, you probably want to get out of the trade. So this was a trade where within 2 minutes, I was already at a 1-to-1 R and I was moved to break even. So that is something that is really, really important to be aware of when you're trading, is how fast is your trade going your way, especially when you are a trader like me who, I don't like to hold trades for longer than like 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes I'll hold it for like 30, 45 minutes, but I'm not someone who's going to sit in a trade for 2 to 3 hours. That's just not how I like to trade. You're subjecting yourself to a lot of risk every minute that you're in a trade longer. Obviously, there is potential for it to go your way. There's also potential for it to go against you. And so I am someone that likes to scale in and out of trades. I like to lock in profits. I like to get in and out. I don't like to be greedy with trying to go for like these huge moves throughout a extended duration of time. I like to be done trading within 30 minutes. And so this was a trade where I knew things were going to be moving fast. Obviously, Asia session open. We have this candle up. I'm risking less than 20 points here, basically just this opening candle. And then we can kind of go for this, swing high here. So there's really not much to this trade besides that this was pretty much just an opening range breakout trade, and we can confirm that there were buyers stepping in here, and we can confirm that there were buyers in the market off this value area low as well. So there's a few different things going on. This isn't necessarily a typical setup I would take, but I wanted to get my 5th trading day on Top Step to secure a payout. So I was able to take this trade really, really quickly, lock in that $150 day, at least be able to take the payout, and then let the rest of it ride for, that extra. Basically was able to make an extra 5K, a little less than 5K, because locked in the 150 before. But that's pretty much that trade. And there was a lot of things that were very clear with it. There was a lot of things that were very, I guess could say, giving me a lot of confidence with it. Basically, if I entered here and we just went straight lower, would have hit my stop loss. It is what it is. Move on to the next thing. Like, it's not that big of a deal. So I knew that I was able to risk 20 points without it being that, it's not that drastic of a loss. And my sentiment that, the opening range breakout was just failing, it happens, it doesn't always succeed. But we had a clear target here. And we knew that buyers were stepping in earlier anyways. So that's kind of the few things that are interesting about this trade. Not a trade that I would typically, take. This is a trade that I would typically take. This was earlier this morning. So what happened here? Where did we actually enter? We entered here. So as you can see, guys, like, I'm in these trades. This is on the 1 minute chart. This is like a 6-minute trade. Could I share how much capital I traded with that trade? I traded 20 MNQ contracts on this trade here and profited $1,000. Risked $500 to make 1,000. And then times that by 5. So risked 2,500 across the 5 accounts to make $5 grand. This trade, we only traded five contracts, 5 MNQs. I wasn't as confident on it. And basically we did have a pretty tight stop loss though, so I wasn't too worried. I would have scaled into this, but things were just moving so fast that we really just didn't even get the opportunity. And it was just extremely choppy. This is not a trade that I would typically scale into. A trade that I would typically scale into is something like this, where we're having consistent movement. As you can see, this trade was extremely choppy. We almost got hit at break even, more than once, and then eventually our last few contracts got hit at break even. And so this is a trade where it's kind of hard to scale in just because it is so choppy. But I was happy to just make some nice profits with it anyway. So basically, higher time frame bearish. As you can see, going in to New York session, we were pretty bearish here. And so that was something that I was just paying attention to. Pullback into premium during established downtrend. So we did wait for the pullback. I forgot to record today's session earlier this morning, but we did wait for the pullback into that VWAP and point of control. And why that's important is it might be different now. But basically where we entered was the point of control, seeing that rejection from buyers at the point of control and seeing those sellers smack the price back down. As you can see, this was the former point of control right here, this volume mound here. And why that's important is because we were basically seeing rejection off of that, and as well as the VWAP. So the VWAP was also in the same place as our entry as well. So we had a lot of things giving us confidence that sellers are coming into the market, and we are seeing that bounce off of that VWAP, off of that point of control, off of our entry at the same price to the downside. And that's going to just continue this downward trend. We also had another clear target here at these Asia session lows. This was my original take profit price where I wanted price to go. We never got there, so our last 2 contracts got hit at break even, but we had a clear target to the downside, which is always important. It's important to always have a good stop loss and a good take profit on your trades. You don't want to be just placing your stop loss and your take profit at random places. And so that's a really important part of this trade, as well as we had a very clear downside target. We also targeted the daily lows as well. And we were just entering on continuation confirmation. We did scale out of partials for 3R, and then we moved the rest to break even, managing our risk pretty tightly there. But yeah, there really isn't that much to this trade. This was like a pretty typical trade I would take. Stop loss just right above these lows here, basically signaling that if that's like the invalidation point of the trade, which it clearly is after we blew through that stop. Well, we were already out of the trade, but after we blew through this price level around 624, 850s, we obviously did continue to the upside pretty strongly. And so clear change of character here after this downtrend, break of structure here, break of structure here, break of structure here, and then change of character right here. Basically, obviously, that would have invalidated our short position, and we were already out of the trade for profit, so it didn't matter. But just an important thing to think about why I placed my stop loss there. So nice trade today, nice trade earlier this afternoon. And then I didn't take, and then this was my other trade as well. Asia session again. I've traded Asia session the past couple days just because I've been awake, honestly, and like I've just had time to. But let's see. We'll go through this trade as well. All right. So earlier sell-off stalled, no new lower lows. This is important because as you can see, so when did Asia session actually open? Asia session opened right here. And what we're seeing is we're seeing buyers come in and we're not seeing any lower lows. We're actually seeing some pretty strong higher highs. And what this is showing me here is that we had this strong sell-off in New York session. Really, really choppy though. I mean, this is not that big of a range for New York session. So we're seeing this sell off super choppy around here. And then we're kind of seeing the momentum pick back up to the upside. And there's a lot of targets that we have from London session that we could target. Basically, literally, if you just simplify everything down, going for something like this being the bottom, New York session having that bottom there. So we are literally just continuing this uptrend, which almost happened. Obviously, we had this sell off here during Asia session, but basically, we were just trying to continue this upward trend, and we were trying to get confirmation on an entry here. And so, what did we see? So, here, make sure you guys can read this. Price began forming higher lows and higher highs after we had a change of character here. And we broke above the Asia session highs, which was here. And we had the point of control here as well. So we waited for confirmation that this was going to be a volume trade as well. We're seeing the point of control there. That we're seeing the VWAP there. We're seeing the average price of things being traded at move to the upside. And so we just waited for an entry there. My initial target was these New York highs, these basically previous day highs, you could call it. And then basically moved my stop to break even and was able to trail as high as here. Obviously could have gone for a little bit more, but was able to catch a little bit more than just these session highs as well. But even if you look here, obviously this was like about a 3-hour trade. This is still almost a 2-hour trade here. And that's why I was comfortable taking it as well, only risking 12 points. So it's not like we were going for anything super, super crazy here. It's not like we were going for, an incredible, it's not like we were going for like 100 points on this trade. We have a 12-point stop. Things are pretty tight. We're trying to just make, a couple $100 per account. Not trying to be too greedy. And I knew that was the likelihood of this trade. I knew we were not going to be going for like a 70, 80 point trade. This was going to be max a 50-point trade at best. And it's just something to be aware of as well. But basically just waited for the pullback, entered. We had some consolidation while we were in drawdown here, but just held out the trade. And then obviously the buyers came back in. We were able to secure a nice 3R here. But this one honestly is like wouldn't call this necessarily an orb, like an opening range breakout. It kind of is, but it's definitely more so where we had this point of control and we were just going for these session highs originally. So there's a few things going into it, but orb confirmation, I guess you could say, that we are headed in the upside direction. We also have these buyers coming in here, pushing above these highs, basically seeing a slight change of character, not quite yet, but we are obviously not seeing this continued sell-off, which was, happening in London session. And then also, trading above the VWAP, which is a pretty good, confluence to use that things are going to be headed to the upside. Then, all right, what's going on here? I might have to turn this off for a second. All right. Similar trade here, Asia session. VWAP reclaim, basically see this liquidity wick on Asia Open. We get this push higher and then immediate rejection lower. But we also have this break of structure here, which gives me confirmation that we should be looking for longs. And then immediately reclaim of VWAP. We start trading above these highs, start trading above the point of control as well. Entry on continuation while structure held, and we definitely could have entered slightly earlier, probably closer to down here was actually where the VWAP was, but we had even more confirmation about how we were probably going to at least hit these Asia session highs that we kind of like wicked at in the beginning of the session at 6 p.m. Eastern. And so price was holding above the value area high and the value area low and the VWAP. Pretty good confirmation that we can look for longs, and then basically just targeted these highs here. Really nice 4R here. We literally had a 6-point stop, so you can be pretty aggressive with trades like that, and very clean continuation to the upside. When you're able to have such a tight stop, you're able to go for these higher risk to reward trades. And so that's kind of what I was doing in this trade, because at the end of the day, 6-point stop, if I lose the trade, it is what it is. You can lose 4 of those in a row and basically have one that overcomes all the losers. But it's really important for that as well. Why did I place my stop there? Basically just at this 1 minute candle here, this 1 minute candle low. Basically, also, this was kind of like an area of rejection here that we were seeing. Not really this. I mean, this was kind of like the reason why I set my take profit here. These kind of levels here, where I knew where I was going to have my take profit. Everything in trading, obviously, levels are zones. Levels are never, very strict and secure. But I did notice that we had this rejection here. And so I figured that if sellers were going to step in around my entry, I was going to get stopped out pretty quickly. And basically just on this 1 minute candle, I was able to give myself a pretty tight stop. I figured that if we did get some rejection here, and obviously we had seen that we had this breakup structure here. And obviously buyers just had a lot of momentum. We were moving very quickly to the upside. And so I figured that we were going to have a pretty strong just push to the upside, whether it was going to be in the short term, whether we were going to get to my take profit, I wasn't really sure. But I was basically at break even within 30 seconds or less. And so that was another reason why my stop was so tight, is that things were just moving so fast. You have to be able to react. And basically I was just saying, like, okay, if things do come down and I get this rejection off of here and we come back down, all right, it hits my stop. If it goes lower and we start to see this break of structure here off of these levels, then we're probably gonna, have some type of change of character here. Or if we stayed above this break of structure, then I maybe would have looked for longs and we could have gone for something like this. But that's pretty much one of the reasons, was just things were moving so fast. I had to place my stop somewhere, and I was like, okay, we're just going to go for this 1 minute, below this 1 minute candle. Whereas if things reverse here, I can get out very quickly, without having too much damage done. And just because we did have kind of these little areas of resistance, they don't matter too much to me, but in a mix with these areas of resistance here, as well as this 1 minute candle, it felt like that was kind of just the only place to really put it, unless I was going to bet pretty big that we were going to hit this take profit. But the way I like to trade is just, having a little bit smaller of a stop and being able to move to break even very quickly, versus having a wider stop and letting the trade play out. Because at the end of the day, if we did go lower than this, 1 minute, I figured that we were not, we were just going to reject off of here and go lower. So having my stop all the way down here doesn't really make much sense, even if I had it down here, because if we were to get below this price anyway, I would have assumed we would go even lower. And so this kind of felt like the place where a long was pretty invalid to me. And that we were going to, if we rejected that, stop loss and move to the downside, we were probably going to go at least another 10, 15 points lower anyways. Whereas I'd rather get stopped out for 6 points than stopped out for 15 or 20. I know that's kind of not the best answer, but that was my thought process behind it. And that is the way that I typically like to trade. I think that it would have just gotten me out of the trade where I think that, is a reasonable invalidation point, especially given this 1 minute, few things to kind of mix together there. Oh, and also it was, my entry was just above the value area low. So this, okay, that was a major reason as well that I forgot to mention, and that I kind of just forgot, that I just remembered right now. This was also the value area low, just below it. So if we were to break below that value area low, we were probably going to go lower. And so I had my stop just below that value area low. Very important part to mention that I kind of just forgot. But those are all the trades that I really want to go over today. I don't think I have much. These are the past trades that I've taken. I haven't taken any other trades besides these pretty much all week. But yeah, do you guys have any questions or anything that I can clear up? I know that that's like a lot to cover, and I know that it's not super mechanical, but I do think that is very important to pay attention to a lot of things going on, and you kind of have to mix them all together, whether that be, the orb and the volume profile. You're also looking at market structure. You're also looking for breaks of structure, changes of character, stuff like that. And then also paying attention to, supply and demand zones and being able to identify where to place stops and take profits.